The next place let's go is Indiana, because I feel like Indiana is the team that has had the most discussion outside of Ben Simmons in regard to trades this year. And it's because of the report, which I believe came from Shams originally, stating that they're willing to look into blowing it up. They're willing to discuss Myles Turner. They're willing to discuss Domantas Sabonis. They're willing to discuss Caris LeVert. Recently, it's been reported that they're basically looking for an all-star with Domantas Sabonis. The way it was framed to me was the price on Sabonis is so high that like it's very unlikely he moves. They're valuing him to an incredibly high extent. Myles Turner.
Why don't I get the shout out on my report? You give Shams credit. I don't get credit.
Did you?
I mean, I think I was probably the first. I noticed that I started
getting please
that one. But yeah,
Tell me about it.
It's like every other Pacers report. I put something out because I'm not on the Pacers feed. I'm on the Celtics feed, but I also do a decent amount of national reporting. Every time I put something out, I get a ton of credit for it, and I'm like, haven't people been saying this already? I didn't think I was saying anything too revelatory, but I did put a leak sources tell the Athletic thing, so I guess that it's going to catch the attention. But that goes all the way back to saying Victor Oladipo wanted out. It's like everyone in the DM, everyone in the league knew that. But so
part of the reason I wanted to have you on is because you had a one-on-one with Myles Turner earlier this year.
Well, most interestingly, it was also Kevin Pritchard, which he said some fascinating things, and then after he said those things, owner Herb Simon did something really rare, and he got all the beat reporters in. He said his piece too. It was really, I hadn't really seen anything like it in a long time. But so, I mean, Pritchard was very clear to me on the record that this team has a pretty clear program of how they build, which is that they don't blow it up and start from scratch, that they pivot and they try to keep moving forward. And so he looked to the PG trade, to the Oladipo trade, and he wants to do the same thing if he trades Sabonis. And so I know we caught a lot of flack for saying we don't know if we is that star to build around in the building. We don't know. And I tried to frame it in the story as him basically saying maybe Domas is that guy. I mean, Domas has been an all-star. He is still only 25, as is Myles Turner, but he doesn't seem to be kind of progressing to the next level. And also they've been changing up his role, and there's kind of this friction of Carlisle wanting to use him as kind of a more standard spread pick and roll five, where he's hard rolling through the lane and then spacing the floor. While his whole game is he likes to kind of operate from the high post and play little kind of triangle actions out of there. And so we've seen a lot of games where he's doing that and is kind of switching back and forth, and it's kind of a tug of war between them. And so it feels like everyone in Indiana is in a bit of a tug of war with Rick Carlisle, which I guess that's what happened when a coach comes in and wants to completely change up the system. But so the team is pretty rife for some significant trades. I think they do need to clearly blow the team up and trade most of their guys. They can go for other younger vets who are also in similar situations that need a switch, or maybe even just go for some older guys, because we always know that they would love to bring back Gordon Hayward if they ever can find a way to do that. Gordon Hayward is destined to play for the Pacers at some point in his career. But yeah, here, I'll throw it back to you. Where do you want to go with this talk?
There's just such a natural fit between Charlotte and Indiana via trade, I think. I've thrown out the idea of a 3-team move involving the Ben Simmons deal and Gordon Hayward and getting a center to Charlotte. I don't even know if you need to include the Ben Simmons portion of that. You could just do TJ Warren and Myles Turner for Gordon Hayward, or TJ Warren and Domantas Sabonis for Gordon Hayward. Plus other assets on top of it. I just mean in terms of the financial structure of the deal. I just don't know what Indiana wants outside of I understand based off of what you just said, they're looking for deals that help them stay competitive, but also allow them to shift in a different direction. Hard to do that. It's hard to do that in the NBA.
I think that they definitely want to. I think that they want to shift their offense to have a primary, their star to be a primary creator from the perimeter, whether it's a point guard or a wing. And so it's funny. I always hear people say they can make a deal with Dallas, and Rick Carlisle can, knows which guys he wants. It's I don't really think Rick Carlisle is interested in doing business with Dallas right now. I don't think there's people on the right. I mean, Jalen Brunson, if you take out the whole contract free agency thing, Jalen Brunson as a player, Dorian Finney-Smith as a player would be wonderful, but you have the contract problem there. So that Dallas is definitely one of those teams that you could really see Myles Turner going to. And maybe there's a way that Sabonis could go there, although it's hard to imagine. But so I really think that Indiana is probably right now trying to figure out who are some of these guys in their mid-20s who are really good but not quite good enough, kind of in that Sabonis ilk. And there's I think one interesting one is in Toronto with Pascal Siakam, because everyone there is just going nuts over Scotty Barnes, as they should. And
Yeah.
there just seems like there's some natural redundancy there. And I think it's a good having 6'10" wings that can do everything is probably a good place to have redundancy, but it at least gives you, at least Barnes seems to have enough promise that it gives you a chance to move off of Siakam and actually still kind of build the team we want to build. So I wouldn't be surprised if Indiana tries to make some sort of big offer to try to get somebody like Siakam.
Man, Pascal has been so good. Like, you remove those first 15 games where it was clear he was kind of like feeling his way back in. I mean, you look at his last 15 games here, he is averaging 23.5 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals. He is shooting 49, 35, 70 from the field and playing valuable defense for them. I mean, it's hard for me to see what Indiana offers to get him. I think that they could want Domantas Sabonis because, again, he fits their model of big dude, 6'9" plus, supersized, very adept with the ball, has a lot of playmaking attributes. And I guess he fits with Scotty Barnes as well because Scotty's a versatile defender who can kind of, move off of him, create some help side, ability where if Domantas gets beat, there's still another guy there coming to protect the rim. I like it. I like the idea of those two because Toronto's another team that does need a center. It's just that Toronto has gotten back into this playoff race, in large part because Pascal and Fred VanVleet are carrying them. And if I was Toronto, I might be interested in just keeping Pascal on some level. I don't know. That is an interesting one though. That's one I hadn't totally thought about.
Yeah, and I will say that a lot of the talk I was hearing was before Christmas, and I mean since Christmas he's on that insane tear. He's also playing 40 minutes a game though, so since Christmas, so that makes you a little worried about his durability. But I mean, the dude's been I think the crazy part is he's averaging 6 assists a game over that span.
Yeah.
So the fact that he's scoring again and shooting the ball decently is great, but the playmaking too, to have two huge forwards that can play make like that, it does make Toronto really scary. And Siakam was what, 20? Is he 28 almost at this point?
Yeah, so, he's 27, 28. Yeah, something in that
so the irony is that you could actually trade for Sabonis and actually move your timeline back a little bit and just kind of align it a little bit better. But I think Siakam is playing better than Sabonis at this point, and I think he's at a more valuable role. I'm pretty sure I still value a big forward that can do some stuff on the perimeter better than a center.
Yeah,
offensively.
If you are going to move Sabonis and your criteria is all-star, right? Siakam works, right? If that's what you're going for, that works. Here's my question. If you were an opposing team, would you rather have Domantas Sabonis or Myles Turner?
So I've had this question asked me 100 times, and I feel like they're really close in their value on the as far as I can't think of a smart way to say it. They're really close in their overall contributions, considering how good Turner is and how much he holds that defense together on the other end. And then his shooting has fallen off a little bit, but was for most of the year shooting 42% from deep. And so if you're a team that already has the creators in place, I feel like Myles is a pretty clear answer there. If you're a team that doesn't have an offensive system in place and you want Domas to be one of your core offensive hubs, then Domas is a pretty clear answer there. And I mean, my story that I did with Myles was all about Myles saying that he's ready to take on a bigger role in an offense and get to put the ball on the floor more and have more pick and rolls run through him and stuff like that. So, his offensive skill can definitely scale, but there's a lot of stuff that Domas does at a different level that Myles, maybe after a few years of that role, maybe could catch up to a decent degree and maybe become the better player. But right now, Domas is clearly just a better offensive player. But so I think most of the teams on the market, especially if you're doing midseason trades, you're not really looking for someone to change up your entire offensive system at the compromise of
Right.
their defense. You're looking for somebody that you can fit into your system. So I've always seen it, and just from everyone I've talked to around the league, it seems like they all agree, is that Domas is going to have the higher price, and that's certainly what it is now. Myles, they're looking for 2 first-round picks, which I don't know if they're going to get, especially with the stress reaction in his foot. That's probably going to keep him out for several more weeks. It's like Domas is going to demand the more value, especially because of just the optics of it from Indiana's side. But there are so many more teams that can use Myles Turner right now. The
Yeah.
Lakers are desperate to get him, and I don't know if the THC package will fit. I'm sure we'll get to that anyway. But there's a bunch of other teams that would love to have him there too.
Yeah, the way that I kind of think about it is that Domantas Sabonis is a better player than Myles Turner. Myles Turner's skill set is more scalable than Domantas Sabonis is. Like it's a lot easier to fit Myles Turner into a scheme. And I think that frankly, a team ceiling is higher fitting Myles Turner into a ceiling or into a scheme than building a scheme around Domantas Sabonis, which is kind of what you have to do in order to get the most out of him. The other guy we haven't talked about here is Caris LeVert. He is number 3 on this list here. I just assume that Caris is going to go for something like a late first round pick.
Yeah,
And
no question.
He'll get moved. And like the deal that is somewhat sensible to me is Cleveland could use one more creator, be it a late first round pick. They have the Ricky Rubio contract to match. Obviously, they might want to keep his contract for bird rights because Ricky was really valuable for them before he tore his ACL. But if they want to get better this year, I do think that like Ricky Rubio on a first, Ricky Rubio and Colin Sexton, and trading Sexton's bird rights for Caris LeVert or restricted free agency rights for Caris LeVert is kind of interesting. I don't know. Like I think there's something there in terms of Caris LeVert to Cleveland because Cleveland could use just one more offensive creator.
So Caris is one of those guys where he like on paper checks every box, but then it's the stuff that you can't really quantify about like fit, timing, attitude, willingness to go along with the program, hot and cold inconsistency, stuff like that makes me worried. Like Cleveland's in this weird spot where it's clicking so well, but they just don't quite have the talent refined yet to actually kind of really compete. And he is a very refined, skilled guy. I mean, his skills are phenomenal as far as getting to those pull-ups, some of the playmaking he can do. But, I mean, I've just seen, as I've had to watch a ton of Pacers games just because of all the reporting I've been doing on them, and I shouldn't say had to. I've been fortunate enough to watch them lose over and over again. But the Pacers, like, he's a good example of what makes his Pacers team frustrating is that he has these incredible games. Or he'll have like a game where so much of it's incredible and then like things really go wrong at a certain point of the game. In Indiana, they are with the Celtics, one of these teams that just like their net rating is good. They look like they're a really good team. And then just the fourth quarter comes, their offense is a complete shit show. And Caris has definitely been a big part of that for better and for worse. And so I worry about bringing that into Cleveland. But at least he's a player where it's like, you're not committed to him long-term. So, you can move on from him if it causes a problem. And it's not like Cleveland reasonably expects to be winning the title this year.